There is an emergency in the penthouse. Please, come quickly. Hurry up.
Yes, I need an ambulance, please.
He left his wife for dead for a glamorous mistress, never suspecting his quiet wife was a secret billionaire. When his life crumbled and he faced eviction, he discovered his mistress now owned his home, and his ex-wife was the landlady he had to beg for mercy. Fam, if you enjoy the story, kindly give us a like and subscribe for more. We would love to hear your thoughts and know where you are watching from on the comments below. Thank you. Here is the detailed story. So, grab your popcorn, sit back, relax and enjoy as we unfold this interesting and informative story. To the men out there, please respect your wives and love them. They hold the pillars to your success in life. Remember that behind every successful man there's a woman. The golden hour sun spilled into the Lekki penthouse, casting long, elegant shadows across the Irako wood floor. It was a space that breathed serenity, a masterpiece of Afro-minimalism curated by Neoma. At 27, she had an innate sense of balance, blending clean, contemporary lines with the soul of her heritage. The walls, painted in a warm Ofala off-white, served as a backdrop for a vibrant, large-scale painting by a renowned Beninese artist. Plush, hand-woven Aso oak throws in indigo and gold were draped artfully over a large, neutral-toned sofa, their intricate patterns a whisper of tradition in the modern silence. This was her sanctuary, a haven of calm and considered beauty. Kola Adebayo, 35, stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, a crystal tumbler of aged whiskey in his hand. The amber liquid caught the light, a small rebellion against the room's earthy palate. To the outside world, he had it all. A rising career in finance, a beautiful, graceful wife, and a home that was the envy of his colleagues. But as he stared out at the shimmering Lego skyline, he felt nothing but a restless, gnawing emptiness. He saw Neoma's subtle elegance as a lack of ambition, her quiet contentment as dullness. The very peace she had cultivated felt, to him, like a cage. His phone, face up on the sleek quartz coffee table, lit up with a notification. A selfie from Adaora. Her caramel skin was flawless, her eyes bright with mischief, taken from the passenger seat of his car, a memory from their lunchtime rendezvous. The background was a blur of her Victoria Island apartment's maximalist chaos. A gilded mirror, a throw pillow with a bold animal print, the glint of acrylic furniture. It was a world of instant gratification and loud glamour, the antithesis of the quiet museum he now called home. Later that evening, the tension curdled the air. Neoma moved around their chef-style kitchen, her hands steady as she seasoned a pot of pepper soup. The custom alcova wood cabinets and the elegant stone backsplash were a testament to her careful planning. A life built together. Another late night at the office. Kola? She asked, her voice soft but laced with a knowing sadness. She didn't look at him, focusing on the pot. You missed dinner with the Alaki Jaws. Again. Kola sighed, the sound heavy with manufactured exasperation. He leaned against the counter, his tailored trousers and silk polo shirt a stark contrast to her simple, elegant linen dress. A major portfolio review, Neoma. You know how it is. This is for us. For all of this. He gestured vaguely around the room. For us? She repeated, finally turning to face him. Her dark eyes, usually so calm, held a deep, weary pain. In her hand, she held a small, crumpled piece of paper. Then why was there a receipt for a diamond necklace from Cartier in your glove compartment? A necklace I have never seen. The air left the room. Kola's mask of nonchalance slipped, revealing a flash of panic, quickly replaced by a defensive rage. You were going through my car? I was looking for your insurance documents, she said, her voice trembling. Who is it for, Kola? Who is Adaora? Her name, spoken aloud in their sacred space, was a declaration of war. Kola's face hardened. You're being paranoid. It's a client gift. You wouldn't understand the pressures I'm under. You're here in your perfect little world. Playing house. Playing house? Neoma whispered, the hurt evident in her voice. I built this home for us, while you were out, gifting diamonds. The argument escalated, a torrent of pent-up frustrations and unspoken betrayals. It spilled out of the kitchen and into the living room, towards the piece de resistance of the penthouse. The floating staircase with its marble steps and delicate, gleaming brass handrail. Neoma stood a few steps up, turning to face him, her eyes pleading for the man she married to reemerge. "I know you're lying, Kola. I can see it in your eyes." Something in him snapped. The pressure, the guilt, the fear of being exposed. It erupted in a single catastrophic moment. "You want to know the truth?" He snarled, stepping menacingly close. "The truth is that you bore me. This life bores me." He shoved her. It wasn't a gentle push. It was a violent release of all his contempt. Neoma's eyes flew wide with shock and betrayal. Her hands scrambled for the rail, finding only air. Her body twisted. A graceful form turned into a helpless weight as she tumbled down the hard, unyielding steps. The sickening crack of her head striking the bottom newel post echoed through the vast, beautiful space. A brutal period at the end of their story. Silence. Kola stood at the top, his chest heaving, the ghost of his rage still contorting his features. Then, as he looked down at her still form, pooled on the Irako wood floor like a discarded Osso oak throw, panic set in. He rushed down, fingers fumbling for a pulse. It was there, faint and thready. He called an ambulance, his voice shaking. But as he gave the address, a colder, more calculating instinct took over. This was his way out. Clean break. While the sirens wailed in the distance, he took her phone, deleting her family's contacts. He would tell them she had left him. He would tell the world the poor, quiet wife from the village couldn't handle the pressures of city life. As the paramedics loaded her into the ambulance, Kola stood in the doorway of their perfect home, already rewriting their history. He looked back once at the beautiful empty space, then closed the door, not on a marriage, but on the life of a woman he had left for dead. The lobby of the private hospital was a stage, and Kola Adebayo was giving the performance of his life. Dressed in a somber, exquisitely tailored dark suit, he was the very portrait of a man buckling under a tragic burden. His light brown skin was pallid from claimed sleeplessness, and he had mastered a convincing, tremulous sigh that elicited sympathetic murmurs from his colleagues. To think, one whispered, his wife just abandoned him after the accident. He's being so strong. Kola accepted a comforting hand on his shoulder, his head bowing in a perfect pantomime of a grief-stricken husband. Inside, his mind was a calculating engine, already dismantling the life he had shared with Neoma. Days later, back within the serene, Afro-minimalist walls of the Lekki penthouse, the performance ended and the pillaging began. The home that had once been a sanctuary of Neoma's quiet taste now felt like an asset to be liquidated. Kola stood in their master bedroom, the early morning Lagos sun casting long, accusatory shadows across the Irako wood floor, with a methodical coldness that would have horrified his friends from the hospital lobby. He yanked open her walk-in closet. The delicate scent of her shea butter and vanilla moisturizer still hung in the air, a ghostly presence. He worked efficiently, stuffing her carefully curated linen dresses, the elegant Ankara skirts Shed had tailored, the soft cashmere wraps, into large, black industrial-grade garbage bags. They were just things now, obstacles. His detachment was absolute until he found it. A small, polished mahogany lockbox at the back of her shelf. For a moment, his breath hitched. He pried it open with a letter opener, the splintering with a small, violent sound in the quiet room. Inside, nestled on velvet, lay the heirloom jewelry from her mother. A pair of simple but flawless pearl earrings and a gold bracelet with intricate filigree. There was also her passport. He pocketed the jewels without a second thought, their cool weight a comfort in his palm. The passport, however, was a problem. He stared at the photo of her younger self, a serene smile on her face, and for a fleeting second, a shard of guilt pierced him. Then his jaw tightened. He walked to the kitchen shredder, the whirring blades devouring the little burgundy book, erasing her official identity as his wife. The final, sinister act was performed in his moody, maroon-walled study. Seated at his sleek desk, the glow of his laptop illuminating his determined face. He worked on the forgery. He had scanned a copy of her signature from a joint account application. On the screen, a document titled Divorce Settlement Agreement was displayed, meticulously backdated by 3 months. Using a graphic tablet, he practiced her looping, elegant signature on a notepad until his replication was flawless. Then, with a steady hand that belied the magnitude of his crime, he signed the document. The scratch of the pen was the sound of a door slamming shut. He took a photo with his phone and sent it to his lawyer. As we discussed, Neoma was very clear about her wishes before she left. Please expedite. Liberated by his own fiction, he fully moved into Adeora's chaotic Victoria Island apartment. His expensive watches now lay tangled with her gilded trinkets on the acrylic coffee table. His leather duffel bag spilled its contents onto her velvet chaise lounge. The clash of their belongings was a visual metaphor for their relationship, a jarring, unsustainable fusion. Finally, Cola, this is us. This is real, Adeora exclaimed, spinning around in her silk kimono, her caramel skin glowing with victory. She cleared a drawer for him with a theatrical flourish, as if curating a museum exhibit of their new life. Cola forced a wide smile, sinking into her emerald green sofa with a glass of cognac. This is real, baby. No more hiding. But the words tasted like ash. Her apartment, once a thrilling escape, now felt like a gilded cage, its maximalist chaos grating on his nerves. The constant visual noise of bold patterns and shiny surfaces was a poor substitute for the profound peace of the home he had systematically destroyed. He tried to outrun the creeping void through social performance. At a glittering rooftop bar, with the entire Lego skyline spread at their feet, he held court. Dressed in a flamboyant printed shirt that screamed new man, he held Adeora close. And after the accident, she was just gone, he told a captivated circle of friends, his voice laced with well-practiced sorrow. She said the city life, our life, was suffocating her. Wanted the simplicity of the village. Signed the papers and vanished. What could I do? He shrugged, the picture of a sympathetic victim. They toasted to his resilience, to his new beginning, their glasses clinking under the stars. A symphony of celebration built on a foundation of lies. Weeks later, the final tie was cut. The Lecky penthouse, now stripped of Neoma's soul, her art, her textiles, her presence, stood cold and hollow. The air was stale, the silence absolute. A single for sale sign leaned against the wall by the door. Cola stood alone in the vast, empty living room, the echo of his own footsteps his only company. He had gotten everything he thought he wanted. Freedom, cash, a glamorous woman on his arm. But as he looked around the void, a chilling realization dawned. He hadn't moved on. He had simply carved a Neoma-shaped hole in the universe, and the emptiness it created was beginning to suck the very life from him. He shook off the feeling, straightened the cuffs of his expensive shirt, and walked out, closing the door without a backward glance. He was free, but he was already in a prison of his own making. The world returned not as a light, but as a sound, a persistent, rhythmic beeping that drilled through the fog in her mind. Neoma tried to open her eyes, but the lids were heavy as lead. A dull, throbbing ache pulsed in her temple, a sinister bass line to the beeping's melody. She tried to speak, to call out for Cola, but her throat was a desert, producing only a dry, rasping whisper. Welcome back, Ms. Obianuju. The voice was calm, accented, and utterly unfamiliar. Panic, cold and sharp, cut through the sedation still clinging to her system. She forced her eyes open, blinking against the soft, diffused light. This was not the harsh fluorescence of a Lagos public hospital. She was in a room that felt more like a luxury hotel suite. The walls were a soothing pale cream, the floor warm, polished oak. A massive window framed a breathtaking, snow-capped alpine peak against a crisp blue sky. A nurse with a gentle smile just the 4-line in her arm. You are in Zurich. You are safe. Your uncle is here. As if summoned, a tall, broad-shouldered man stepped into her field of view. Uncle Chi Jayok, her father's stern younger brother. His face, usually a mask of unreadable composure, was etched with a profound relief that made him look older. He took her hand, his grip firm and grounding. "Neoma," he said, his voice low and thick with emotion. "We nearly lost you." The story came out in fragments, pieced together by her uncle and the doctors over the next few days. A vigilant nurse at the Lagos hospital, suspicious of Cola's hurried, evasive behavior, had found the discreet medical alert chip sewn into the lining of Neoma's handbag. A final, paranoid security measure her father had insisted upon. The Obianuju family had moved with the swift, silent power that vast wealth commands. A private medical jet was dispatched within hours, and she had been under the care of the world's leading neurologists ever since. The physical therapy was a brutal recalibration of her body. She learned to walk again in a state-of-the-art gym with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the serene Swiss landscape. Her muscles screamed in protest. Her balance was that of a toddler, but she embraced the pain. It was a tangible enemy, something she could fight. But it was the emotional healing that was the true battle. Nights were the worst. In the silence of her recovery suite, the memories would ambush her. The feel of Cola's silk polo shirt under her grasping fingers. The contortion of his handsome face into a mask of pure rage. The dizzying, sickening sensation of the fall. The cold, hard impact of the marble against her skull. And then the ultimate betrayal, the knowledge that he had left her. He had abandoned her to die, nameless and alone, in a public ward. She would lie there, tears of fury and anguish hot on her cheeks. The sterile, clean scent of the Swiss clinic a stark contrast to the phantom smell of his cologne that haunted her dreams. One afternoon, as she was finally able to take short, unaided walks in the private garden, Uncle Chi Jayok joined her. "The investigators have their preliminary report," he stated, his tone neutral, as if discussing a minor corporate acquisition. "He emptied your joint accounts. He forged your signature on divorce papers, backdated them. He is living with the woman, Ada Orenwadike, in her Victoria Island apartment. He has told everyone you abandoned him." Each word was a scalpel, meticulously flaying away the last remnants of the woman she had been. The woman who believed in love, in partnership, in the sanctity of their home. There was no outburst, no scream. Instead, a terrifying calm settled over her. The tears dried up. The trembling stopped. She looked out at the majestic, unyielding mountains, their peaks piercing the heavens. They had endured ice, storms, and time itself. They were scarred, but they stood. "Uncle," she said, her voice quiet but with a new, steely core. "I want the penthouse back on the market. I want every asset he ever had access to frozen or recalled. I want a complete dossier on him, his mistress, his finances. I want to know what he eats for breakfast." She turned to him, her eyes, once soft with love, now held the glint of honed obsidian. He thought he pushed a helpless wife down the stairs. Neoma said, the ghost of a smile touching her lips, a sight more fearsome than any scowl. "He has no idea that he awakened the Obianuju heiress. It's time to go home." The air in Adaora's Victoria Island apartment, once a heady perfume of ambition and illicit desire, had soured. It now smelled of tension, unspoken accusations, and the metallic tang of financial anxiety. Cola stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, but the glittering view of the Lagos lagoon failed to calm him. He was a man watching the carefully constructed pillars of his new life begin to crack. It started with a whisper, a sudden, unexplained freeze on his corporate credit card at a business lunch with important clients. The embarrassment was a hot flush that crept up his neck as he fumbled for his personal card. Then came the official cream-colored envelope from his bank. "Loan recalled." The words were printed in a deceptively simple font, their impact seismic. The loan he'd used to fund Adaora's lavish birthday trip to Dubai, a trip she had plastered all over social media, was now due in full, immediately. "Cola, what is this?" Adaora's voice was a sharp whip crack, slicing through the silence he had been clinging to. She thrust her phone at him, the screen displaying a dizzying nosedive of his company's stock price. "My friend just sent this. She said there are rumors." Rumors about embezzlement and an EFCC investigation. Is it true? He turned from the window, his light brown skin looking sallow under the apartment's harsh downlights. The maximalist decor he once found thrilling, the gilded mirrors, the bold animal print rug, now felt garish and oppressive, a testament to shallow tastes and unsustainable spending. It's a misunderstanding, Ada Ora. A temporary setback, he said, his voice lacking its usual confident boom. My lawyer is handling it. Handling it? She laughed, a brittle, ugly sound. Kola, you were fired. Your accounts are frozen. How exactly are you going to handle the rent for this place? Or my car note? The veneer of the glamorous, supportive mistress evaporated, revealing the calculating survivor beneath. Her caramel skin, usually glowing with expensive facials, was tight with anger. The sequined cocktail dress she wore for a party they would no longer attend seemed like a cruel joke. The final blow arrived via a terse email from the property management of Lagoon Towers. The subject line was, "Final notice, eviction proceedings." The sleek, modern apartment he had secured as a symbol of his triumphant new beginning was being ripped away. The reason? Non-payment of rent. Panic, cold and sharp, finally overrode his pride. He drove to the management office, his knuckles white on the steering wheel of the car he could no longer afford. He would beg, plead, use the last of his charm to buy time. The receptionist, devoid of sympathy, directed him to the penthouse duplex, the private residence of the elusive owner, a mysterious entity known only as Zobel Properties. The elevator doors opened directly into a foyer that stole the breath from his lungs. He was standing in a double-volume living room, a space of such breathtaking scale and sophistication, it made his rented apartment look like a servant's quarter. The design was a masterclass in Afro-minimalism, a duotone theme of crisp white and elegant black, punctuated by sophisticated gold accents from the crisscross linear chandeliers above. The airy space was anchored by a floating sculptural staircase and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the Lagos Lagoon like a living painting. And there, standing before that magnificent view, was a silhouette he would recognize anywhere. Her posture was different, straighter, more commanding. She turned slowly, and Kola's world shattered into a million irreparable pieces. It was Neoma. She was dressed in a sharp, modern pantsuit the color of burnt ochre, a hue that made her dark skin glow. Her hair was cut in a severe, elegant style that accentuated her high cheekbones and the cool, detached expression in her eyes. She was no longer the wife from the neutral-toned Lecky apartment. She was the queen of this enigmatic, powerful space. Neoma? Her name was a choked whisper, torn from the deepest part of him. What is this? How are you here? She didn't smile. She didn't flinch. Her gaze was as steady and impenetrable as the laterite wall in her office. I am here, she said, her voice calm and unervingly steady, because I own this building. I am Zobel Properties. I am your landlady. The pieces of the last few months, the financial ruin, the job loss, the eviction, clicked into place with the finality of a vault door slamming shut. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a coincidence. It was her. It had always been her. A torrent of emotions, disbelief, terror, and a desperate, pathetic hope crashed over him. His legs gave way, and he fell to his knees on the exquisite Persian rug, the intricate patterns blurring before his tear-filled eyes. Neoma, my love, I was poisoned by that witch. I was a fool, a blind, stupid fool, he cried, his voice cracking. Forgive me, please. I made a terrible mistake. We can start over. I never stopped loving you. He reached a trembling hand towards her, but she took a sharp, deliberate step back, her posture as unyielding as the marble floors. You left me for dead, Kola, she stated, the words hanging in the elegantly designed space, cold and absolute. You left me in a public hospital and told the world I had abandoned you. The woman you claimed to love died in that fall. There is no us to go back to. His face contorted, a flicker of that old, entitled rage surfacing through the tears. But you forgive me? You said it, right? You forgive me. Neoma looked down at him, a sad, almost pitying smile touching her lips. It held no warmth, only finality. I forgive you, she repeated, her voice clear and strong, echoing in the vast room. Not for you, but for me, so I can close this chapter and be free of the weight of your memory. My forgiveness is not an invitation back into my life. It is my final goodbye. She pressed a button on a discreet panel on her desk. Security will escort you to pack your belongings. You have until sundown to vacate my property. With that, she turned her back to him, looking out over the city she now commanded. Kola, broken and utterly defeated, was led away by two silent, uniformed men. He finally understood the true cost of his betrayal. He hadn't just lost a wife. He had provoked a queen, and her mercy was the most devastating form of revenge. The rain fell on Lagos in a relentless, gray sheet, mirroring the desolation that had become Kola's life. He stood on the sidewalk, a single worn suitcase at his feet, watching the taillights of the taxi that had dropped him off disappear into the downpour. The eviction from Lagoon Towers had been the final, humiliating act. He was now a man without an address, his credit destroyed, his reputation in tatters. His phone, his last tether to the world, buzzed incessantly with calls from debt collectors. The few friends who answered did so with strained politeness, their offers of help evaporating the moment he asked to crash on a couch. He was a pariah, a ghost smelling of failure. The sharp, expensive cologne he used to wear was now replaced by the damp, sour scent of despair. He found temporary, shameful refuge in a cheap motel in a part of the city he had once driven through with his windows rolled up, its stained carpets and flickering neon sign a far cry from the gilded cage of Adaora's apartment, let alone Neoma's serene penthouse. Meanwhile, in her Ikoyi office, Neoma was finalizing her victory. It was not a celebration, but a closure. The dossier on Kola's complete ruin was complete. She had not just defeated him. She had systematically dismantled the life he had built on her suffering. A part of her, the ghost of the woman who had loved him, expected to feel a surge of triumph. Instead, she felt a profound, echoing quiet. The rage that had fueled her for months had burned out, leaving only ashes and emancipation. Driven by a need for finality, or perhaps a last, fleeting trace of compassion, she instructed her driver to take her to the motel where her investigators said he was staying. The black, armored SUV looked like a spacecraft from another world as it pulled up to the curb. Kola, huddled under the motel's awning trying to light a cigarette in the damp air, froze when he saw her. She emerged, impeccable in a tailored trench coat, protected from the rain by a silent security guard holding a large umbrella. The contrast was brutal. She was dry, powerful, and untouchable. He was drenched, broken, and exposed. Neoma, he breathed, the cigarette falling from his trembling fingers into a puddle. Why are you here? To gloat? No, Kola, she said, her voice calm, carrying over the drumming rain. I came to see for myself that it was over, and to give you this. She didn't hand him an envelope of cash, the cliché he desperately hoped for. Instead, her security guard placed a small, waterproof document folder in his hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a legally binding document stating that all debts he incurred through his forged actions were now settled by Zobel Properties. It was not a gift. It was the final severance package. She was cutting the last financial tether he had to her, ensuring his survival but guaranteeing his mediocrity. This, he stammered, his eyes scanning the paper. This is a fortune. It's the cost of my freedom from you, she replied, her gaze steady. Consider it the final settlement, the one you should have given me. He looked from the document to her face, and the last of his pride shattered. The great Kola Adebayo, brought to his knees not just by her power, but by her pity. He was crying now, the tears mixing with the rain on his face. I'm so sorry, Neoma. I was a monster. I know, she said softly, and I forgive you, but we are done. Do not contact me again. Do not look for me. If you do, this, she gestured to the document, will be void, and you will face the full legal consequences of your forgeries and embezzlement. She turned and walked back to the SUV, the guard closing the door behind her. Through the tinted window, she took one last look at him. A shrunken figure clutching the document that was his lifeline and his sentence, standing alone in the rain. There was no satisfaction, only a deep, weary sadness for the love that had died and the man who had killed it. The SUV pulled away, merging into the flow of the city. Kola watched it go, the reality of his new life sinking in. He had a future now, but it was a small, gray, and lonely one. Neoma leaned back in the plush leather seat, closing her eyes. The chapter was finally, irrevocably closed. She was free. The heiress had not just reclaimed her wealth, she had reclaimed her soul. The road ahead was hers alone, and for the first time since the fall, it stretched out before her, full of light and limitless possibility. 3 months later, the grand ballroom of the Eco Hotel's V Suites shimmered with an almost celestial light. It was the annual Future Africa Philanthropy Gala, the most exclusive event on the Lagos social calendar, and tonight, all of high society was buzzing with a single, electrifying question. Who was the mysterious principal benefactor behind the night's largest donation? Neoma stood before the floor-to-ceiling mirror in the private penthouse suite above the ballroom. Her reflection was that of a stranger, yet it was the most authentic version of herself she had ever been. She wore a custom-designed gown of deep sapphire, its fabric woven with subtle threads of gold that caught the light like scattered constellations. The neckline was a modern geometric cut, bold and architectural, and it was accessorized not with diamonds, but with a stunning heirloom piece from the Obianu Jew collection. A heavy, polished gold collar that spoke of ancient royalty and unassailable power. Her stylist had just finished, leaving her alone. The silence in the opulent room was not empty. It was full of purpose. Down below, Kola stood at the periphery of the ballroom, feeling like a ghost haunting his own past. He had used a connection from a former junior colleague to secure a low-level staff pass, telling himself he was there to network. The document Neoma had given him had kept him from destitution, allowing him to rent a small service apartment in Ikeja and secure a modest, humbling position as a junior analyst in a small, unknown firm. The suit he wore was his last good one, and it felt like a costume from another man's life. He watched the glittering crowd, a living tapestry of everything he had lost. And then he saw Adaora. She was clinging to the arm of a portly, older man, a shipping magnate known for his fleeting attention. She was still beautiful, still draped in labels, but her laughter was a little too loud, her smile a little too desperate. Their eyes met across the room, a flicker of mutual recognition, then a cold, dismissive glance from her before she turned away. She had moved on to the next opportunity. The humiliation was a fresh wound. Suddenly, the master of ceremonies took the stage, his voice booming through the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, tonight, we have the unparalleled honor of revealing our principal benefactor, whose historic donation will fund the new Obianu Jew Center for Women's Leadership and Innovation. A spotlight cut through the crowd, searching. The benefactor is not just a donor, the MC continued, his voice rising with drama. She is the visionary CEO who has steered the Obianu Jew Group into a new era of global impact. Please, a thunderous round of applause for the woman who needs no introduction, yet has chosen to step into the light tonight. Dr. Neoma Obianu Jew. A collective, sharp intake of breath swept the ballroom. The name, Obianu Jew, landed with the force of a tectonic shift. The spotlight found its mark at the top of the grand staircase. And there she was, a vision of breathtaking power and elegance. Neoma descended the stairs slowly, her head held high, the sapphire gown flowing around her like a royal mantle. The whispers exploded. She's an Obianu Jew? The reclusive heiress? But I heard she was. Kola felt the floor drop out from beneath him. He watched, paralyzed, as she glided through the parted crowd, a serene, untouchable smile on her lips. She did not look at him. She did not need to. Her very existence in this space, in this role, was the final, absolute verdict on their past. She reached the podium, and the room fell silent, hanging on her every word. "Thank you," she began, her voice clear and resonant, carrying through the hall without effort. "For too long, I believed my power was in remaining quiet, in building a small, quiet world. I learned, through fire, that there is no strength in silence. My journey has taught me that when a woman is pushed, she should not fall. She should rise, and she should reach back to lift others up with her. This center is not a donation. It is a promise. A promise that the women of Africa will not be defined by the floors they are pushed to, but by the heights they are determined to reach." The applause was deafening, a roaring wave of admiration. As she stepped away from the podium, she was immediately surrounded by governors, ambassadors, and titans of industry, all seeking her attention. Kola stood frozen, the noise of the gala fading into a dull roar in his ears. He saw it all now with horrifying clarity. The coma, the hidden wealth, the calculated ruin, it wasn't just revenge. It was a metamorphosis. He had not merely lost a wife. He had been the catalyst that unleashed a queen upon the world. The woman he had pushed down a flight of stairs was now ascending to a throne he could never even glimpse, let alone touch. He turned and stumbled out of the ballroom into the anonymous night. There were no more tears, no more rage. There was only the hollow, absolute certainty of his own insignificance. He had gambled a diamond for a piece of glass, and in the process had lost everything. Neoma, feeling the weight of his gaze leave her, allowed herself a single, deep breath. The final thread was cut. She turned to the chairman of the Dangote group, who was waiting to speak with her, and offered a genuine smile. The past was a closed book. The future, vast and bright, was finally, completely hers.